Do you ever feel like your NPCs are nothing more than quest dispensers? Well, in today's episode, we're going to talk about how you can turn your NPCs into dynamic, interesting characters.
Welcome back to the Wizards of Eam podcast. I'm Ben Casa. This is James Parks over here, and we are going to talk about NPCs. Now, admittedly, it's a little clickbaity, what we just said, okay? Yours aren't always boring. We don't believe that. But we all, as GMs, can get stuck in a rut, and when we're in the thick of a game, we can forget to make people interesting that the characters interact with. So here are the biggest mistakes that GMs will make with NPCs.
Parte the first, exposition overload. Sometimes you want to get the story out there for the players, and an NPC is a great point to do that. But when the NPC just becomes like a lore giver constantly, you lose some of the connection that the characters can develop with the NPC to make them care.
Yeah, they're just throwing up a word salad of all the lore that you wanted to inject.
Iceberg lettuce. You got your carrots in there. You got a little bit of Italian drizzle. You know?
Yeah, I mean, NPCs can really be useful to drip out that lore, but you don't want to vomit all over everyone.
No, nobody wants that.
So another thing is that, you might have some one-dimensional characters. They might feel flat and cardboard. There's also the generic shopkeeper and quest giver that just is kind of there for one functions, one-dimensional character who has one sole purpose, and they have no name, no backstory, no motivation or anything. And that's pretty boring. Here are several posters.
Here are the wares. The wares for sale. That'll be 1 gold piece.
Sorry, what is your name? And then the GM is like a deer in headlights.
Yeah. 12 minutes later, the quest continues.
Like if you played any or run any game, you'll know that the players will always ask the name of the NPC that you never cared to think about.
Yeah.
As the GM, you're not really asking the PCs questions or talking with them in character. Then they will feel flat and cardboard. And so that's one of the biggest mistakes. Okay.
Oh, I didn't expect that petulant teenager to come out. No, but that's absolutely true. And look, not every NPC is going to be a winner. There won't be a place for a super dynamic NPC in every single quest, every single adventure. But what we're going to talk about today are some tips and tricks for how we try to make our own NPCs more dynamic, not just in the land of Eam, but at our table playing any game.
Yeah, and you're going to float some stinkers, inevitably. In any game, there's going to be...
Stinks and floaters. Sorry, go.
But
I'm a child.
When you're a GM, you're juggling so many things. It's hard to always provide that, level of detail and engagement with every single NPC, but you should always be striving to hit that mark. And we're going to tell you a few things you can think about to consistently do that.
Yeah. So how do you make an NPC interesting? Well, the first step is to give them a hook. And what does that mean, Ben? Like, what's a good hook for an NPC?
Well, a hook, what we mean by that is something that both the GM and the players can easily grok and grab onto. You don't have to read a whole giant text as the GM to understand the character. You can grab onto a few details easily. And so
yeah,
you got to
interpret who they are by reading their backstory. You don't have to interpret their behaviors. Just say what they are.
Right. And so one of the first things we think about is you got to define their why. What are their motivations? Like every person in the world has some motivation, even if it's simple. It's as simple as this shopkeeper wants to get the best deal or
wants to sell the best wares or wants to do their job really well or is in love with another shopkeeper. Something that is at the core of their being that they're pursuing on their own.
Yeah, and it's always more interesting when you add a twist like is in love with the shopkeeper across the way. So they got to have a motivation that drives their actions. That's the first one. And they have to have unique traits and quirks. And these are actually two of the things that we do in the Land of Eam sandboxes. We've got a list of 3 traits and their basic motivation, as well as a little paragraph about them. And so when we're talking
simple, they're designed to be simple so that a GM can easily understand who this character is and what they want to do. And one of the benefits of positioning that way for yourself is that it actually makes playing the NPC with the players a heck of a lot easier because that NPC, they've got motivations. They've got a character to themselves, even though it's just cliff notes.
Right. So you think about like 3 adjectives or qualities, traits that will really kind of make this NPC stand out quickly. Adding contradictions and peculiar habits will really help. For instance, like a brave knight with a irrational fear, or a bard who has stage fright or something like that.
Yeah, these traits allow for, and the traits can also be adversarial to the PCs in some degree. Like this NPC seems great in every possible way, but they really hate it when someone tells them a white lie or something like that. And so that rascal finds themselves in hot water with the NPC, which could derail how that NPC would interact or maybe even aid the PCs.
And another one of these traits that's really useful is to, have them have memorable voices or phrases. I think there's a lot of pushback maybe in the RPG community where people are like, I'm not a voice person. I can't do voices. And yeah, it is kind of hard to always have a memorable voice for an NPC or remember the voice that you have for an NPC. Like I always struggle with that. I was like, I have no idea what voice I did before.
Yeah. I slip into Jersey and you slip into Jeff Gold.
Even just altering your speech pattern.
It's happening.
Yes.
It's happening. It's happening.
Interesting. Yeah. It's remarkable. Yes.
Yeah,
it's wonderful. So even just doing that,
even you just pull out like a Cadillac version of a Jeff Goldblum impression.
Just watch like, I don't know, like a dozen Jeff Goldblum videos and try to mimic his speech patterns.
Yeah, the key to a great NPC is to just model them all off of Jeff Goldblum characters. That's what we do.
Right. So
no, but voices are great because you can just immediately change a character. Giving them a little bit of
you want to
and then you can go a lot of different ways. You know what I mean? You can go tons of different ways.
Yeah, well,
it can be
it can be really influential, and it'll
you can capture.
It'll give you players a really fun time.
You know what I mean?
So Ben and I always have a lot of fun doing voices and stuff because it's a great way to really grab the PCs right away with what's going on in the scene and who this person is to them.
Not a necessary thing. You can just alter your speech patterns in a little way, like maybe someone has a little lisp or they cough all the time, or maybe they you can do stuff like this, like they're scratching their face and rubbing their chin. You can do that type of thing. To make
I'm not sure I trust you, Ben Costa. Last time I saw y'all punched me in a tooth and stole my dog.
Yeah, exactly. So you got these traits and you got the Y's and the all these interesting adjectives. The last thing that will make a memorable character is proactive behavior, James.
Tell me, how do I be proactive, Ben?
Well, you want your NPCs to sort of initiate interactions with the PCs. So it isn't always just this one-sided thing. You want your characters, your NPCs to take interest in the PCs, have them make requests of them. What's always really fun as a GM is to have an NPC who's like hooked up with the group and then they go off and get in trouble. They're like they're going rogue and getting the party in trouble. And that's always interesting.
Yes, it is. And I'm going to circle that back to motivations with something that happens a lot in the Muckland sandbox, is that there'll be a secret embedded in the motivation that the PCs won't really know. And it could be the pursuit of something that's against what the PCs want. Not saying that they're a bad person. They just have this motivation that gets in the way of what the PCs might want to do. And that can be a really fun way to create a little bit of extra conflict that's not necessarily, super high stakes all the time, but can throw a wrench in the works at the wrong time to really amp up the drama.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm going to piggyback off what we just said about how an NPC may have a secret motivation that is counter to what the PC's objectives are. Because creating an antagonistic NPC is also a very great tool to create conflict for the adventure.
Right. And we may, obviously you've got your villains who could be the reason that the PCs are on a quest to begin with, but there's also like rivals, your soft villains who aren't going to actually kill the PCs, but they're at odds with them at every step of the way.
You're racing for that same treasure, and they'll do whatever they can to throw banana peels in front of your team.
Yeah. And these are powerful to have on your side as a GM, and they follow the same rules as everything we're lining out here. You want them to have strong motivation traits, and it's always great to, have that personal connection with one of the PCs.
Right.
All of the PCs.
An antagonistic NPC that has a personal connection to the players is the perfect tool to overlay any quest that they play in, because there's always a reason for that NPC to show up at the wrong time and to get involved with maybe other NPCs or other villains of that particular adventure. They are, in many ways, this creative thread that can be woven into the entire campaign and often generate a lot of not just drama and conflict, but also humor and just reminding you what that, big personal quest is all about.
Yeah. And in Land of Eam, we have that baked into the backstory where you come up with, rivals and allies, which is fun. But even if you haven't done that yet, or you didn't start out with that in your campaign, even just creating this personal element, like you could work with the player to do it, but even just whipping it out during a session and establishing a personal relationship with someone could be fun for that player, as long as, there's buy-in.
Before we end the episode, we want to put out a challenge to everybody to make an NPC with the following simple rules. Step 1, name your NPC and write a couple of sentences describing their backstory. Step 2, list out some traits about their behavior. Just one word traits is all you need, just like 2 or 3 of them. And step 3, write their motivation. This is what they want. This is what they're pursuing. We'd love to see what you guys come up with. Please post them in the comments. We think it's a helpful way to structure an NPC, and we hope that you guys find it useful.
So yeah, your NPCs aren't really boring. We were just kidding, but we have these rules that we like to follow when we're making our NPCs, and we've made about 800 NPCs using this method in our sandboxes, and we're gonna make hundreds and hundreds more. So give us your feedback on how you approach things.
If you found any of that useful, please feel free to like and subscribe, and to check out landoveam.com to download the free quick start guide of the game.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.